And just briefly, it makes 2 technical adjustments, but it also increases the time for a member who may want to appeal an administrative decision by KPERS, and usually it's around disability benefits. Currently, the statute's at 30 days. This would increase it to 60 days.
Thank you. Committee, do you have any questions? Any objections? Thank you. We'll get that entered. Any other bill introductions at this point in time? I do want to make a clarification from yesterday. We had a bill introduced in the Senate that really needs to go to the House. So it had a House RS number on it, so I don't want anybody to fret about that. We have plenty of bills. They can send some to the House. All right. Well, today we have the pleasure of welcoming our Insurance Commissioner, Vicki Schmidt, and she is going to give us a presentation on the department. And so we welcome you. Thank you. Happy to have you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Oh, that sounds nice. And members of the committee, some old, some new. Well, old as being on the committee before. Whew. Let me clarify that. I'm excited to work with all of you. I know the sacrifices that it takes to sit in your chair, and I just want you to know that I, for one, appreciate that and appreciate the time you dedicate to the citizens of Kansas by serving. It's really important, and when you answer that call to serve, sometimes you don't know what all that's going to entail, and this is one of them. All right, well, I look forward to providing you with the state of the insurance department. You've heard a lot of the state addresses last week, so mine hopefully will be a little bit shorter. The mission of the Kansas Department of Insurance is to regulate, educate, and advocate. As Commissioner, it's my goal and to efficiently carry out the mission while also effectively serving Kansans. It's been a great job, and you all have been so instrumental in helping me achieve some of the things that we have wanted to. So thank you so much for that. I'd like to share a few of the highlights from past sessions for you, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about current issues that are surrounding insurance and my approach to solving some of those problems. Year after year, I know I've told you my priority is to make Kansas a great place to do business, and for me, that starts with running an efficient operation that reduces red tape and prioritizes service. I've talked a lot about it in the past, but I know many of you will remember Senate Bill 37. It was passed in 2021, and it overhauled the producer licensing process. I'm going to keep bringing it up because to date, this has reduced revenue coming into the department by $21.5 million. I think it's important for you to know that the work you're doing is having a real impact. In 2023, you provided flexibility to the department, so I lowered certain insurance agent and agency licensing fees, further reducing revenue into the department by over $1 million. Starting in fiscal year 2022, a moratorium was put on securities and registration fees, and those have subsequently resulted in a $47 million less coming into the securities fee fund. When you add it all up, combined with other operational efficiencies like the live scan machine for fingerprinting, free CE, fingerprinting fees, no work comp assessment, we have reduced the cost of doing business in Kansas by nearly $75 million. I understand that this year there is a big emphasis on efficiencies in the State House, especially in the budget process. I'd like to think that I've been doing this before it was cool to do, and before there were legislative committees dedicated to it, and before the federal government agencies decided to dedicate some time to it. It is part of my core value as a public servant, and this year's agenda, like every other year, just continues it. So industry regulation is just part of the work that we do at the department. Another focus last year was education, where we reach consumers, industry professionals, law enforcement, and Kansas students. The department participated in 18 outreach events across the state. I would have to say my favorite outreach event is the State Fair of Kansas in September in Hutchinson. I go for several days, and I am just always excited to come back with a lot of complaints for the department to work on. But we've been very successful in helping people and also just not being a secret about what we do and helping people there. State Treasurer Stephen Johnson graciously invited me to moderate a panel at the Women in Money event, and we talked about managing and protecting your investments and throughout all the stages of life. Our department also participated in combating fraud seminars sponsored by the Kansas Bankers Association and the Kansas State Bank in Ottawa. Hundreds of people attended that event, and they learned from department staff how to protect themselves from fraud and financial scammers. Both of these events are just a snapshot of the educational outreach that our department does every year with consumers. We appreciate the opportunity to partner with others to better educate Kansas on these important issues. Along those lines, we also partnered with KAIA to put on free continuing education for insurance agents. In 2024, we provided over 2,100 hours of free continuing education. And last but certainly not least is our Smart Invest KS program, and we have increased our efforts to help educate Kansans about investment fraud, whether you're a rookie or a veteran investor. I became a pharmacist because I wanted to help people, and that is exactly what we get to do every day through our work in the Consumer Assistance Division. Again, I think that we are one of the best kept secrets in Kansas, and I am trying to make sure that every Kansan knows that the department has resources to help them with their insurance issues. I do think we're making progress, and I'm excited to report that to you. After my first year in office, the Consumer Assistance Division recovered $2 million for Kansans. Last year, we recovered $11.8 million. In addition to those efforts, the Consumer Assistance Division has also assisted Kansans with the NAIC Life Insurance Policy Locator. After my first year in office, we recovered $2.5 million. Last year, in 2024, we recovered $25 million. Year after year, we've put more money back into the pockets of Kansans. Our total for both since I took office is over $144 million, and I'm very, very proud of that. All of this would not be possible without the work of all of the people in the Consumer Assistance Division, and we've actually hired 2 new people to help us in that workload. Again, I'm probably the only elected official, I believe I'm the only elected official, that comes before you and says, send me your complaints. We want your complaints. We don't always get a perfect outcome, but we will always get answers to the best of our ability. And I am a firm believer that people do deserve those answers. I don't always like the answers we get, but we're going to make sure that your constituents get answers. If we aren't the right agency, we will get them to the right agency. We have contacts that aren't in their, I was going to say their phone book, but that would really date me, but I might say in their cell phones. Now I'd like to talk just a minute about last year's HB 2562, the Protecting Vulnerable Adults from Financial Exploitation Act. That is a mouthful. We implemented the bill on July 1st, 2024. Since then, we have already had 58 reports involving roughly 1.6 million from those mandated to report under the new statute. 3 cases have been opened by our office for potential violations of the Uniform Securities Act, and all 58 cases have been referred to APS, Adult Protective Services, and law enforcement. Now I'd like to talk about some of the bills you're going to see this year from the department. One of the biggest things I hear about insurance is affordability. It's no secret that the cost of everything has gone up. Recently, I've had questions about whether the fires in California will impact our rates. The answer is not directly. Kansas insurance rates are based on risk here in Kansas. However, we have had our share of catastrophic events, such as tornadoes, straight winds, etc. In 2023, Kansas storm claims paid by insurance companies totaled over $442 million. There's a large variety of factors that go into the cost of insurance, including inflation, the reinsurance market, technological advances, and litigation costs, just to name a few. I am focused on giving Kansans more tools to help them with the rising cost of insurance. So this year, the department is introducing an insurance savings account bill that will allow Kansans a state-free way to save for property and casualty premium and deductible costs. If passed, it would be the first of the kind in the nation. Other states have savings account dedicated to disasters, but this would be much more flexible. There is not a doubt that bad actors drive up the cost of insurance. The goal with our next several proposals is to help stop fraud and illegal activity, which contributes greatly to the cost of insurance. First, we have a proposal that will allow the department to issue civil penalties for insurance fraud. Currently, we only have the ability to bring criminal cases, which we refer to the Attorney General's office. And I think that one will be in Senator Warren's committee. We look forward to appearing before you. Secondly, we have a proposal to establish a real-time insurance verification system. I'm really excited about this one. This will serve as a tool to law enforcement, the court system, the Department of Revenue, the treasurers throughout the state, and others to help stop the illegal activity of driving without insurance. Those of us who have lawfully paid for our insurance premiums are punished when we get hit by an uninsured driver. We did a data call, which means we called all of our we called all the companies that write auto insurance in the state of Kansas, and we asked them to provide us in the calendar years 2021 and 2022 what they paid in claims related to uninsured motorists. Anybody have a guess on what that amount would be? It's $51 million in 2 years, paid in Kansas for uninsured motorists. Insurance fraud and driving without insurance are crimes, and crimes that cost every law-abiding Kansan in the form of increased premiums. So we look forward to presenting you with that piece of legislation when it comes up on the calendar. We are going to double down on our efforts to be more efficient. You will see another proposal to lower fees, including elimination of producer appointment fees, renewal fees, which will lower the revenue to the department by about $6.5 million. Since tax cuts seem to be a hot topic this year and every year in the legislature, we're going to do it too. The department proposes to reduce premium taxes to 1.98%, which will eliminate the portion that the insurance department kept. It's strictly a pass-through, and we kept some money, and we don't need it. Eric has told us that he always has so much, Eric Turek has always told us he has so much fun in this committee, so I really can't wait to hear how much fun he has in the tax committee. Raise your hand if you serve on tax. Okay. You will find several helpful poem cards in your packet that we have distributed along with a copy of our full agenda. And all the time, Eric Turek is happy to answer all of your questions. And at any time, day or night. He does keep his cell phone on, I do know that. I want to introduce some of the key staff people that I have here with me today. I hope this person is no stranger to you, and if he is, he's in a lot of trouble. But Eric Turek, Director of Government Affairs, who I know you all know. Lauren Childers is our Director of Consumer Assistance. She's new to this role, but she is not new to the Consumer Assistance Division, and she is just knocking it out of the park. Dan Klukas is the Securities Commissioner, and you can thank him for the bill against vulnerable adults, to help vulnerable adults. He was a driving force in that. Steve Carr is our General Counsel. Step so you can see him. You may remember him from his time in the Attorney General's office. Kyle Strothman is the Deputy Chief of Staff, and Mandy Rowe is the Chief of Staff. And if you need anything from the department, please do not hesitate to contact her. She also has her phone on, even in the delivery room before she had a baby. So you can ask a lobbyist about that interaction. Lastly, I want to thank the research and the reviser staff, people that sit at this lovely table here. You guys do so much work for us, and you are diligent about the work you do, and I know all of the, everyone in this room ask a lot of you, and I just want you to know how much we appreciate all the effort that you put into our insurance and securities matters. We really do appreciate your assistance to us. Bottom line for me is that we're going to continue recovering dollars for hardworking Kansans. We're going to make Kansas a better place to do business. We're going to go after the bad guys, and we're going to do it all while reducing the amount of revenue coming into the department. And that would conclude my remarks, and be happy to entertain questions if you have time. I'm not sure of your schedule.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner, for being here today. So first of all, before we get to questions, and we have time to take a couple, I just wanted to thank you for doing such a great job leading an agency that does care about our consumers and our constituents, and very responsive. Every time I have an issue and I call somebody or email somebody, I always get an answer back. You're correct in that it may not always be the answer my constituent wanted, but at least we've got people that are listening to them and checking things out, and they know there are issues. So I absolutely appreciate that, the customer service piece. Secondly, I would wonder, last session, and maybe the session before, we would get a graphic that we could put in our newsletters on the kinds of things that the insurance department can do to help.
Sure.
Will that be happening this year, or do we use the same ones from last year?
No, we will send that out to you. We like to send things that you can put in the in your newsletters that are kind of copy and paste in,
Yes.
and again, you help us reach people that may not know what we do. So we'll absolutely get that. I know what graphic you're talking about, and we'll get that to you again.
It was really very helpful, very useful, and people actually did read the newsletter and pay attention to that. So again, I appreciate all of the customer service practices that you've implemented at the agency. Now, so at that point, I guess we've got time, maybe 5 minutes for questions, committee. We'll start with Senator Gossage and Senator Rose. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome. I just want to start out by saying what a useful tool this is. Being a health insurance agent, life insurance agent myself for the last 20 years, can't tell you the number of people who are like, well, I just found out my great uncle so-and-so passed, and I think I have something coming. How do I find out? And this, start your search, how can you find out? And these are your steps. Awesome. I didn't even know that existed. So thank you very much for that. I want to echo what was said by our chairwoman, and that is, I find the department to be very open and easy to reach out to, helping clients, of course, with this is how you file a complaint, and you go here. It's very easy. You go right online. That's great. If I may, could I address just a couple of the legislative that you have on the legislative agenda? And these are not, I'm not requesting a full response this minute, but that I would like to talk perhaps to Eric about this. And one is the knowing more about the insurance savings account, what we expect the fiscal note to be on that. It's just property casualty, kind of what all is entailed there. I'd like some more details on that. And the other one is, I, of all people, would love to see the state oversee the Medicare Advantage plans. However, because it's so affiliated with Medicare as a federal program, I'd like to know kind of what you had in mind for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, let me, I'll try to go in order here, but the Palm card like thing on the life insurance locator, you know, that system in itself at NAIC is remarkable. You can go back, we've gone back to a policy that was purchased in the 1950s when someone was a freshman at K-State, and they were able to trace that all the way back. So it's a remarkable tool. We have started including that. We have started working with funeral homes, and those of you that have experienced a death in your family, perhaps get a folder that talks about how you get birth certificate, or death certificates, how you get forms that you need and things. And we have developed that so that they could put that in that folder for them. The ISA, the Insurance Savings Account, I would say we're desperately working on a fiscal note. It's so hard to think about that, and we're trying to work with the Division of Budget with that. And I don't think well, it would depend. I mean, what is the uptick going to be? I mean, when 529 accounts started, it was pretty low, but, it has advanced through the years. So we'll see, and Eric has some more information on that. And the last one was, oh, Medicare Advantage. How could I forget? Well, you know, I would tell you that the majority of complaints that we get in consumer assistance is on Medicare Advantage plans. You know, I know William Shatner and Joe Namath tell you a lot about Medicare Advantage plans, but they kind of forget the details. They kind of forget about what the network looks like. They forget about what your out-of-pocket is going to be before they start paying anything. They forget about a lot of, they don't inform you, like, we have authority over Medicare supplement plans and their advertisement. And so we know that what they say is correct. And if it's not, we call them up and we talk to them about that. And we've even fined some agents for printed material that has not met the snuff. But, you know, I think on Medicare Advantage, we would love to have that jurisdiction. What we are planning on doing is introducing a joint resolution this year in the House and the Senate. We're in the process of working with legislative, with the revisor's office. And we would like to send a message to our federal delegation. And because when we go to the fly-in every year in May to talk to our federal delegation, and they always say, well, what do the folks back home think about that? You know, what? And so we would kind of like to have a little backup. And that's what we like to do.
And if I may, Madam Chair, I would add that allowing COBRA to be considered continual coverage, because currently it is not, and people have been on COBRA for a year, and then they find out they have a year's penalty because they sign up for Part B and did not know that COBRA is not considered employer-sponsored health insurance. This is something we've been working on for a long time and just doesn't seem to get anywhere.
And I know we've had that discussion also, and I think
Yeah.
that's a very good point, because it's the same insurance, you're just
Same
paying
insurance.
you're paying all the freight on it.
Right.
And so I don't know why it isn't considered, but,
That's a part of the resolution, perhaps, that we can put in there to help Medicare. Thank you so much for indulging me, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam.
thank you for the service that you do with your clients.
Thank you.
Senator Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Schmidt. Medicare beneficiaries are inundated by marketing phone calls every day. Many of them get 10 or more every day. Is there anything that your department or the legislature can do to stem this?
You never know until you're about a year and a half away from turning 65, and then you're very popular in the mail and on the phone calls. No, we counsel people that you should never make a decision like that over the phone. You should always have them mail you information, send you information, and take the time to do it. Never give your numbers to them and do that. But we don't have any other, the no-call list doesn't seem to stop that. So if you have any suggestions, we would be more than ready. And, you know, and I did forget to say two things. One is that whatever you guys decide to do in legislation and the insurance department is going to implement it, we will do it. Without question, we will institute any piece of legislation that you pass. And the other thing I wanted to just say is that we still have real live people answering the phone when you call. We don't have push here and push there and whatever. We still have real live people, and we are back at the office 100%. So we've been there for years. Anyway, but if you have suggestions, Senator Rose, I would take them and run with it.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. You're certainly welcome to stay because we're going to have a hearing on 2 of your bills.
I know. I'm gonna grade him.
Very good. Thank you so much. And you're welcome anytime to come back.
And thank you, committee.
Thank you. So committee, we are going to begin our hearing on Senate Bill 20. You have a folder that's got the bill and the information behind it. The first thing we normally do, if you haven't been through a bill hearing yet, is get a briefing from the revisor. So Eileen, would you care to do that for us? I guess you really don't have a choice. But wasn't that polite? Would you care to do that for us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, committee. Senate Bill 20 is essentially a reintroduction of last year's bill, Senate Bill 423, with one section relating to the Kansas Underground Storage Tank Liability Plan removed. This bill reduces the number of board members appointed by the commissioner on certain insurance-related boards and the frequency of the meetings of the Committee on Surety Bonds and Insurance. As you recall, Senate Bill 423 passed the Senate last year, but it did die in conference. So this bill would grant the Commissioner of Insurance the ability to decrease the number of board members, as I said, on the boards for which she has appointing authority. The bill stipulates that all board members on affected boards who are appointed and serving as of July 1st, 2025, would have those terms end on July 31st of 2025. The Commissioner would then appoint a new board who would serve 3-year terms, and those terms would begin on January 1st of 2026. The new boards would have the same powers, duties, and functions as the old board, but the new board members would be removable for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance. The affected boards, as you can see, are listed below in section number as they appear in the bill. Section 1 has the governing board of the Automobile and Motor Vehicle Bodily Injury and Property Damage Liability Insurance Plan. I'm sure a revisor came up with that name. The members decrease from 9 to 5. Section 2 affects the governing board of the Workers' Compensation and Employers Liability Insurance Plan. Members there decrease from 9 to 7. Section 3 affects the governing board of the Kansas Automobile Assigned Claims Plan for Personal Injury Protection Benefits. There, the members decrease from 9, and that's specified not in statute but in rules and regs, to 5. Section 4 pertains to the governing board of the Health Care Insurance Availability Plan, and their members decrease from 9 to 5 members. Section 5 pertains to the Committee on Surety Bonds and Insurance. Currently, they're required to meet once per month. This requirement would be eliminated and meetings would remain at the call of the chair. The bill also reflects some changes to update the language contained in some statutes and some additional changes for clarity and readability. I specifically point to Section 1 of the bill, where myself, and I fully admit I'm not good at math, and a fellow senior revisor looked at it and couldn't figure out where 9 was coming from until we took this statute apart. So we redrafted to make sure it was clear on where all the members were coming from. So those changes were made, and we also brought some language to conform to current drafting standards. And with that, Madam Chair, I can stand for questions.
Committee, do you have any questions of our revisor regarding this bill? Thank you, Eileen. So the first, we're going to make a little change here. We got our wires crossed on who is testifying. So Eric's off the podium, and it's going to be Kyle Strathman, proponent testimony. Kyle, would you like to come forward and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of this committee. My name is Kyle Strathman. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff at the Kansas Department of Insurance. I appreciate the opportunity to testify to you all on Senate Bill 20. As Eileen mentioned, this is a bill very, very similar to one that we brought last year. Did pass out of committee, and I believe cleared the whole 39 to 1. So this is a bill that those of you that have sat on this committee have essentially seen before, and those of you that are new, well, you'll get the opportunity to learn about it a little bit as well. The core part of this bill really is this reduction of these 3 boards, as Eileen covered in her overview of the bill. Last year, we saw a 4th board reduction. That one has been removed in this version of the bill. Reason for that is during the process last year, there were some questions about from some legislators about quorum on some of the reductions that we were seeking for the underground storage liability board. We listened and heard that loud and clear, so we have actually removed that board as one of the ones we will not be seeking a reduction for. Along those lines, really what this bill is designed to help us solve an issue at the department is it can be very difficult to find individuals to serve on these boards. I think when I testified last year, we had 3 vacancies across all boards that we were seeking to reduce the membership of at that time. We are currently sitting at 7 this year as I testify. I believe one of those we're in the process of verifying and going through the background on, so that might get lowered to 6, but that is essentially doubled in the time that we previously testified on this bill. That's important because that really highlights what we try to solve with this bill, and by lowering those board memberships, we think that what this will not only help us solve by trying to get people to serve on these boards, it will encourage that active participation from existing board members, and that's in keeping with the commissioner's goals of efficiency and active participation in government. So the other parts that this bill does, Eileen mentioned the surety bond committee. That committee, I believe it's a 4-member committee made up of the commissioner who chairs it or her representative, and then 3 other individuals from other state agencies. That committee meets to discuss state insurance contracts and surety bond issues. Obviously, they're in the name. They meet once a month, as Eileen mentioned. They met 17 times last year, and 5 of those additional times were on the call because they didn't have business to discuss at the time when they were scheduled. So what we've encountered, and we think that they can responsible enough to have this remove the monthly requirement and put it to this meeting on call of the chair when they actually have business. We just think that is more efficient, and it'll allow them to focus on those issues when they actually have business in front of them. So that's another part of this bill. The final sort of big component of this bill is it does add that language for that allows for removal of certain board members for inefficiency, neglect, or the duty piece. Currently, as it stands, there's no way to remove a board member other than just not reappointing them. So you could have a scenario where a board member, is part of one of these boards and just stops showing up or just doesn't show up. Commissioner would have no ability to remove that individual from them. They would have to let their term expire in 3 or 4 years, depending on what board. So we think by adding this language, that gives some accountability that is currently not there. Bottom line is, again, this bill is really intended to help us solve that problem of service and finding folks to serve on these boards. Helps us be more efficient and reduces the size of government all in the same swipe. So with that, Madam Chair, I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Kyle. Committee questions? Senator Gossage?
Thank you, Madam Chair. How many boards are we talking about here?
It's just 3.
So page 2 and page 4 are basically identical. Am I right on that? When I'm comparing the 2 pages together, I almost thought it was a misprint.
Yes, so I think the confusion is the auto assigned claims plan and the Kansas auto insurance plan. That is governed by one board, but I believe it's referenced twice. It's the assigned claim plan has the reference, and then the auto insurance plan has a reference in statute, but it is governed by the same board.
So it describes 7 members, blah, 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 exactly, and then the next page is something that is a different purpose for which they are serving, but same board.
Same board, yes.
All right. So then when I move on over then a couple of other pages and it's describing a board, this is the 3rd board. Is that right? Or is this the 2nd board on page 8?
Page 8. Yes, I think page 8, I believe page 8 refers to the healthcare provider availability board, that section.
So I was surprised that it says 1 member who shall be a representative of foreign insurers. Really?
Yeah, so when we say foreign insurer, at least in statute, so think about that as a domestic insurer would be a company that's domiciled in Kansas and would be subject to the regulation.
Domiciled in Kansas,
Right.
foreign meaning outside
Foreign,
of the state.
yes. So those, yeah, not necessarily outside of the country, but outside of the jurisdiction of Kansas.
Okay. All right. I think that's my questions. And by the way, I can see the fingerprint of our friend Eileen all over this with changing here under to something else and which to that, because it looks like lots of strikeouts, but those are usually technical changes. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. I think our reviser would like to make a comment. Just one second. Not about that. Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe, and wow, am I going out on a limb here, but I think that the bill affects 4 boards, not 3. Section 1 was the governing board for automobile and motor vehicle bodily injury, property damage liability insurance. Section 2 pertained to the governing board for workers' compensation and employers' liability insurance. Section 3 was the governing committee for the Kansas Automobile Assigned Claims Plan for Personal Injury Protection Benefits. And then Section 4 was for the Healthcare Insurance Availability Plan. I'm not sure where I got 4 from, but that's what I was asked to draft.
Yes, and that's where I was kind of leaning towards Senator Gossage's question on that. That is one board. So the Automobile Assigned Claims Plan and the CAPE, the auto insurance plan that are referenced in those 2 changes are governed by one board. So there's where the 3 comes in versus the 4. It's referenced that way in statute, but it's governed by a single board.
So it's the same board for 2 different insurance plans.
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. Committee, any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Fagg, did I not turn far enough?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Deputy Chief of Staff. If all the board members will be going off at the same time, was there any discussion on staggering appointment dates? My thoughts was complexity on issues and recruitment of board members. So I just wondered if that would be, if you ask for 5 new ones at once or 4, whatever it is.
Yes,
As a
so
new board member, if you got an all-new board, that kind of, in some boards, it's kind of nice to have some veterans on there with the rookies that everybody kind of learns what's going on. So I just a thought.
absolutely, and thank you for that question, Senator. What I guess is kind of confusing with the language here is when we talk about she'll have reappointments after December 1 of 2025, that doesn't mean that existing board members that are already serving on these boards won't be reappointed at that time. So you absolutely have the option to keep whoever wants to continue to serve. With the reductions, however, she would then, since these are reduced, there's certain categories on the board that are reduced. Some of those may have to be eligible to be removed because they now have to bring it under that reduction limit. But she has the option to reappoint those that are there. It won't be just a fresh 7 on the board.
Thank you.
Committee? Senator Francisco, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do. So I'm trying to follow what I thought was a very good question about the repetition of the boards. So when we go through and number the boards, Section 1 does have to do with automobile and motor vehicle, but Section 2 that has that same board seems to say that it's workers' compensation or employer's liability insurance, so Section 1 and 3. And I understand that we're talking about the same board for 1 and 3, but I'm seeing the same board members listed on pages 2 and 4 for sections 1 and 2.
And maybe this is a better question for Eileen, but our understanding of the bill is that sections 1 and 3 refer to, again, that one board that governs both the automobile assigned claims plan and the auto insurance plan. And then section 2, as you mentioned, would be the question, or the section that deals with workers' comp board. So 3 boards in question: the Kansas Automobile Assigned Claims Plan and Automobile Insurance Plan Board of Governors. That's the board that handles both. The Workers' Compensation Insurance Governing Board, and then the Healthcare Provider Insurance Availability Plan.
It's still not clear to me because the list of the change shall consist of the following 9 members is the same under sections 1 and 2, not sections 1 and 3.
We'll might have to take a look and talk to the revisor about that language, but the intent certainly was for those to match. So we can take a look at that and provide some clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Francisco. Thank you, Kyle. And we'll let you and Eileen take a look at that. And if we have to make any amendments to that, we will. So committee, any other questions? We have no one listed as opponent, no one listed as neutral testimony. So at this point, then, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 20. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We have one more we're going to try and that will be Senate Bill 24. So committee, I'm going to open the hearing on Senate Bill 24. You should have a folder in front of you that has that bill. And I'm going to ask our revisor to step to the lectern and educate all of us on this bill.
Wow, Kyle's really tall. The microphone was way up there. Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 24 would authorize the commissioner to set the amount of certain fees and then would require the publication of those fees in the Kansas Register. If you look at the brief that I provided, all of those listed statutes currently specify a flat fee that's charged for the purpose of that statute. What this bill would do would take that flat fee that's currently being charged and turn it into a ceiling, and then allow the commissioner the authority to set the amount of fee up to that flat amount that is currently being charged. And what would occur in the process would be by December 1st of each calendar year, the commissioner would set the amount of those fees that are being affected here and then publish the amounts for the next calendar year in the Kansas Register. We also, if you look at the list that I provided, those statutes are listed in the same order in which they appear in the bill. And again, we did the strikeouts and new language to conform to current drafting practices and improve readability. And with that, Madam Chair, I can stand for questions.
Thank you. Committee, do you have any questions? It's pretty straightforward language. Yes, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm hoping this is a yes. The way that this bill is drafted will mean that the fees will not have to go through the Joint Committee on Rules and Regs, but can be simply set by the department and published in the Register.
That would be correct. The authority is granted in this bill for the commissioner to be able to set the amount of that fee and then notify the public by publishing in the Register. Incidentally, that language you'll also see as a fix to our annual date change bill. We're going to grant the commissioner the authority to specify what instructions will be in effect for risk-based capital insurance and then publish that information in the Kansas Register as well. I think December 1st is going to be a big day for the commissioner.
I appreciate your work on that. Thank you.
Any other questions of the revisor? Thank you, Eileen. So our first proponent is Eric Turek. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Eric Turk, the Director of Government Affairs for the Kansas Department of Insurance. This bill may look very similar to you, and that's because this bill was heard in this committee last year. It was introduced as House Bill 2715. That passed the House 119-0 and 40-0, and that bill did contain the flexibility for the commissioner to lower fees that are codified in statute. And I am happy to report on House Bill 2090, the legislature passed this in 2023, and that allowed the commissioner, that was kind of like the pilot program for this bill, that empowered the commissioner to, granted her the flexibility to lower insurance agent licensure fees. And so calendar year 2024 marked 1 year since she lowered those fees from $30 to $15 for resident agents and $80 to $50 for non-resident agents, and a cumulative total savings for new licensees is $1 million. And so on December 1st of last year, the commissioner published those fees once again. Those will be active for calendar year 2025. And I won't repeat a lot of what the revisor stated. There's about 100 different types of fees in this bill that the commissioner would have the flexibility to lower. I also want to talk about appointment fees, and I'll look to the agents on the committee, and I know that you are all familiar with appointments from insurance companies, but for those who are not agents on the committee, before, of course, an agent has to be licensed before they can sell, but before they can sell for a particular company, they have to be appointed by the company. And the companies paid the department $2 per agent if the company is based in Kansas, if it's a domestic company, and $5 if it's a foreign company. And this is a fee that is charged annually. It's a fee, the appointment structure. We see this all across the country with departments of insurance. And upon reviewing our expenses and our budget, and in order to align our expenses with the cost of doing business, we want to eliminate the renewal aspect of the appointment fee. So companies would, instead of appointing agents every year, they would appoint once, and the agent would be appointed until they are terminated by that company. So we would move more toward a lifetime or a perpetual model of appointments, and 12 other states are already doing this. And I'll say this too, for our appointment fees, we do have the lowest appointment fee in the country, notwithstanding the states that don't charge any fee for appointments. And what I'll say too is that the renewal fee will roughly reduce our revenue. If eliminating that renewal fee will reduce our revenues by roughly $6 million each year. So happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Eric. Questions? Senator Gossage?
Not a question per se, but yay, thank you. Not only because you always need more agents to be able to help people out there, and sometimes it can be prohibitive. I'm licensed, I forget now, I think it's 25 states. All the other states, I have to pay $100 every time I renew. Some are $200 when I renew. So having the state of Kansas having these low fees and giving the opportunity for, based upon revenues coming in, et cetera, to say this is our ceiling, we can lower those without having to come back to you every time, yay. I'm happy to give a motion for this when we work this bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Fagg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director of Government Affairs, for all your good work. The question that I have is that everything in here talks about the flexibility to lower. What if we need to raise rates? You know, where inflation just went through the last couple of years, and it seemed like the whole conversation is going that way. If we wake up some morning and need to raise, when you talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. You know, with the language, with the flexibility language, of course, whatever is published in the register would be those fees for the next entire calendar year. So if the department does need to make some adjustments, we would make those accordingly each year. What I will say too is, per the bill, we would not be able to raise those fees above what is already in statute. If it is the legislature's prerogative to increase those fees, that's the legislature's will.
Thank you. Committee, any other questions? I will call your attention. Thank you, Eric. I will call your attention to proponent written testimony from Elizabeth Smoller. That's the Kansas Association of Insurance Agents who are in support of Kansas, Senate Bill 24. We don't have any opponent testimony. I don't see any neutral testimony. So at this point in time, then, I will close the hearing on Senate Bill 24. Committee, thank you for your good work today. Thank you, Commissioner and staff, for being here. I want to remind everyone that we will not meet tomorrow or Monday. We'll meet Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We do have hearings all week next week, and we are likely to have to meet the following Monday because of the workload. We probably have more, you probably know this, but we have more bills than any other committee right now. So, and we have to get through those. And I think Eileen knows that, so thank you all. Committee adjourned.